Yes, we first of all take a look at what is on the diary before I take you through what is on the roads or what to expect on the roads. And here we are. Okay, before we get to look at that, I'm being told it's only fair that we first of all take a look at what is on the roads. And here we are, right here, starting from the central beat of Nairobi. Not so much of traffic this morning as always. There's just something about this side of Landis Road. You realize that there's a bit of traffic in most cases around Kikomba area. I guess it's because of the level of industrialization that happens down there around these sides of Kamkunji and Muthurwa, that is headed to Ring Road and all that. So there's a bit of traffic around there. So if you are taking that direction, you know what to expect. If you want to get yourself into this key market, then you know how to maneuver to get yourself there on these sides of Landis Road, as from, Lusaka to all these sides. You realize that there's a bit of traffic in regards to the same. But away from it also, I just want to pick these points that seem to be alarming. Let's come to this side of Jogoo Road. Yes, some bit of traffic right here on Jogoo Road, as you can see. While you're headed to town, somewhere you get some bit of traffic, but all the same, it's moving. That is after you pass Makadara to these sides of Butela, going down there as you're headed to the CBD, you get this traffic, but pretty much of an ease still as it is moving evidently. And let me see whether there's any other part that is alarming, but just generally, as we look at it, you realize that it is not badly off. Yes, bringing us to these sides of Mombasa Road. Mombasa Road also, as you're headed to the city, is not so good right after you pass Capital Center and going down there somewhere around the Kenya Institute of Mass Education as you proceed to the roundabout, the Nyayo Stadium. There's some bit of traffic there. Actually, not some bit, it's a bit heavy this morning. So that means if you're taking that direction, you know what to expect. Let's go down and see whether there's any other spot that there is traffic around Mombasa Road. And yes, evidently not so bad, apart from this bit where is around Panari. Some bit of it as you're headed to town, but it is not badly off. And these are the sides of, yes, Yana Towers and all that is also some bit of traffic of it. That is you need to know that is as you're headed to town and you're taking Mombasa Road, this side down a bit to Cabanas and all that. Yes, there's also some bit of traffic. So if you're taking that direction, you know what it is that you expect. If you can avoid, then it is only fair that you save yourself the hassle, or if you need to step out, then move as early as now before it gets even worse. Around Makadara, yes, I said there's a bit of traffic there, but it's not badly off. This is Thika Road, coming from this bit of Githurai and moving towards town. You come and get some bit of traffic around where you get to interconnect with this is Muranga Road and all that. That's where you get some bit of traffic somewhere around here, Pangani, as you are headed to town, and it moves on. So it's not badly off this morning. As you can see, we've passed drive-in, also not so bad. Let's come to these sides, Pangani, Juja Road and all that is pretty much of an ease this morning. Kipande Road is not badly off. Let's come to these sides of Westlands and where we are, also not so bad this morning. Parklands is an ease, and Ngara West is an ease. Muranga Road is an east. Chiromo is good. Kipande Road is not badly off. Green Valley Estate, Wayaki Way. Let's see whether there's something that can cause alarm on our Yaki Way. You find some bit of snarl-ups, some different spots, but it is moving this morning. And coming to these other sides of Kiambu, as you headed to Kiambu, Southern Bypass is an ease this morning. You can see that it's a little all green, and bringing us to Ngong Road. Ngong Road is also not bad this morning. So that means there's no cause for alarm on matters traffic in Nairobi today. So briefly, what is on the day, or what is on the daily diary? Let's have it up and you see what to expect this morning, or the events that will be taking center stage. There you go with the daily diary. and Chief Justice officially retires today. He will be remembered as the head of the first judicial bench in Africa to have nullified the election of a sitting president. And another one, Senator Irungu Kangata, is expected to hold a brief today at 11 a.m. outside Senate chamber. Of course, also talks of this, being postponed. But then again, we'll be giving you updates in the event that it is there. We'll update you accordingly. But that aside, Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i will tour Kericho County today to assess the progress made by schools in the area in implementing the government's roadmap on resumption of face-to-face learning. Also, what we expect a different reaction in regards to what has been like on matters politics in the weekend, and we'll definitely be following up on all this to ensure that you are well updated. And so I think that's more like it on what it is that we have on the daily diary. In the event that something else crops up, I'll be here to update you. And before we cross over to the panel, let's first of all take a look what it is that my team has prepared. And the main suspect to the gruesome murder that occurred in Kiambaa area now says he was inspired by a TV series to kill 5 people, among them his 2 parents. That is 22-year-old Lawrence Warunge informed DCI detectives that he was inspired by Villanelle, a character in the Killing Eve TV series, to killing his family members.
The 22-year-old IT student, who has already confessed to have killed his family members in Karori, Kiambu County, now says he was inspired by Villanelle, a villain and psychopathic assassin character in the British thriller Killing Eve. Lawrence Warunge led detectives to the spot where he allegedly disposed the weapons he used to kill his family members and other key exhibits at a pit latrine in MAHIU area that were used during a murder incident undertaken on January 5th. Lawrence, the main suspect, confessed to have killed 5 people, among them his 4 family members and 1 worker. In his confessions, it is said that Lawrence disclosed that he chose to eliminate the 4 members of his nuclear family for talking ill of him behind his back. Post-mortem examinations on the bodies of his father Nicholas Warunge, his mother Anne Njoroge, his brother Christian Njenga, and cousin Maxon Njenga, both 13 years old, and their worker James Kinyanjui, are expected to be conducted on Monday as the search for 5 other suspects continues. Nano Cloren, TV 47.
William Ruto now says it is not a must he ascends to power in 2022. The DP was responding to President Uhuru Kenyatta's remarks when he said that it's probably time that other tribes also get a chance to run the country. This, as Mwangi Maina reports.
Kuna jamii tu mbili za Kenya ambazo zimetawala, labda ni nafasi ya jamii nyingine pia kutawala.
A different tune from Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, a man who now appears to have changed his mind on the 2022 polls, which he had promised to support Deputy President William Ruto. A marriage that was formalized in Nakuru, now done and dusted. President Kenyatta's allies have been claiming that the discord between the two has been occasioned by Ruto's 2022 presidential bid.
It is not a must. It is not a condition that William Ruto or anybody must be president, but it is a must that we must all sit on the table.
Sio tu kuja kutupatupa maneno huko na ujui ni nini unasema, kulete hasira na uhasima kati ya Wakenya.
2 years ago, President Kenyatta, while addressing residents of Karatina in Nyeri County, accused section of members of parliament from the region of concentrating on the 2022 polls, insisting that he will have a say in the forthcoming general elections. The deputy president has also been accused of using his allies from the Mount Kenya region to attack the president. The hustlers versus dynasties narrative, also seen as one that might have angered the president in his recent open attack on his deputy.
Tumeshurutishwa na mambo mengi. Wengine wamepelekwa kotini. Wengine wametolewa katika nafasi ya uongozi katika huko bunge. wengine wamefungiwa akaunti zao, wengine wametumiwa KRA, ati ndio tusikue na mjadala ya Wakenya wote. Mimi nataka niwaambie, hatuwezi kata tamaa, hatuwezi kuhuma. Hii mjadala lazima tukue nayo, na mimi na hawa viongozi hatutachoka until we have this conversation. So my friends,
na wengine ambao wanaongea hata kura yao na viti ambavyo wako navyo ni kwa sababu ya kura yangu.
Ruto and his allies have already unveiled a political party, the United Democratic Alliance, as his political vehicle for 2022. The party is sponsoring Bishop Margaret Wanjiru as its candidate in Nairobi against Jubilee's candidate if there will be any by-election in the capital.
Na mimi nawahakikishia ya kwamba safari hii Nairobi tutainyorosha ili Nairobi iwe ni capital city ya Kenya.
Ruto, though not openly opposed to the BBI report, has been saying that he cannot lead a no campaign against his boss. Nanok Lauren, TV 47.
That story compiled by Mwangi Maina but voiced by Nanok Lauren. And still on politics, Deputy President William Ruto now says it is not a must that he ascended power 2022. Yes, a repeat of the previous one that I had mentioned, and that the DP was responding to President Uhuru Kenyatta's remarks when he said other tribes can also run the country. And as Mwangi Maina now reports, the second-in-command allies were also quick to respond to the president.
At the House of Hope Church in Kayole, Nairobi, Deputy President William Ruto attended a Sunday service. Ruto and his allies took the president head-on, terming the president's remarks as tribal alienated.
Hizi wamepata wasiwasi kwa sababu biashara yao ya ukabila na bei ya ukabila Kenya imepungua, na hasara itapatikana kwa biashara yao, kwa sababu Wakenya hawataki kuuziwa ukabila tena, wanataka kuuziwa sera.
In his remarks in Vihiga Saturday, President Uhuru Kenyatta said it could be time for the country to give other tribes an opportunity to rule. Uhuru's statement appearing to have been directed at his deputy, who had been promised Uhuru's 2022 support for the top job. In a manner meant to chide his boss, Ruto said it is not a must or a condition set for him to ascend to the presidency come 2022.
It is not a must. It is not a condition that William Ruto or anybody must be president, but it is a must that we must all sit on the table. It is not negotiable.
Tukue watu ambao ni waaminifu, kwa sababu tulisema ya Uhuru 10 na ya Ruto, ya Uhuru 10 na ya Ruto 10.
Ruto says the negotiation table is big enough to accommodate everybody, and as such, no Kenyan should be left behind when leaders are looking at their own interests.
Sasa kuna watu wengine wanaambiwa watapatiwa uongozi kwa boardroom. Wengine watapatiwa uongozi kwa kutumia sijui kwa baa fulani. Ati kuna wengine watapatiwa na system. Ati kuna wengine watapatiwa na deep state. Sasa sisi tunasema sisi tuko tayari. Sisi tunajua uongozi inatoka kwa Mungu na wananchi.
Tanga leaders who had accompanied the deputy president have faulted the president's utterances and cautioned that they may bring about tribal animosity and intolerance.
In the next State of the Nation address, I want to request President Uhuru Kenyatta to correct the things he did yesterday in Kakamega and restate the true position of the country as a nation where we will organize ourselves, not based on tribes, not based on religion, not based on sectarianism, but based as a one.
Kiendelea hivyo, musishangae wengine wakisema watoto wa kabila hii hawafai kuajiriwa kwa serikali. Watoto wa kabila hii hawafai kupewa kazi ya polisi ama ya jeshi. Musishangae tukianza kuambiwa watu wa jamii fulani ama ingine hawafai kuishi eneo hili, hawafai kufanya biashara eneo lingine la Kenya hii. conversations are about excluding other people. It is about telling others that wewe huwezi kukuja hapa because you come from this place or the other.
The Tanga faction also blasted leaders perceived to be advisors to the president and asked President Uhuru Kenyatta to seek guidance from former President MAAI Kibaki.
Wale rais anashauriwa kuumiza ni wale waliombea yeye wakampatia kura akakuwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Tena isipokuwa wajui kama wangetoka area hii wangejua hakuna mtu ya kuumizwa. Tayari watu wameumizwa zaidi, hawezi kuumizwa kuliko hapo.
The dreams of those hustlers that I represent and the dreams of the hustlers and the children of hustlers that I represent, those dreams cannot be achieved because ati mtu moja ya kabila yao amefika kwenye wanataka kufika. Their dreams are separate from any other individual in their tribes.
Leaders also endorsed city politician Bishop Margaret Wanjiru for the Nairobi gubernatorial seat after she was cleared to run on a United Democratic Party ticket, a party affiliated to Deputy President William Ruto. Mwangi Maina, TV 47, Nairobi.
A story and the previous one forms the basis of our discussion this morning, so keep it right here and keep the tweets coming. We sample them as we proceed. But as Chief Justice David MARAGA officially retires, he will be remembered as the head of the first judicial bench in Africa to have nullified the election of a sitting president. But MARAGA's 4-year term has been marred by several challenges, including the open hostility between the judiciary and the executive arms of government. Musa Salah with the details.
Having inked his place in the historical records as the chair of the first judicial bench in Africa to have nullified the election of a sitting president, David Kenani MARAGA has certainly stepped on the toes of the who and who's in President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration. MARAGA took the mantle as Kenya's second Chief Justice under the current constitution on the 19th of October 2016, following his predecessor Dr. Willie Mutunga's early retirement in June the same year. But barely a year later, the 2017 general election that was fairly contested between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga put to test MARAGA's leadership in the judiciary. MARAGA would later nullify the presidential results in which Uhuru Kenyatta was declared winner, but Odinga disputed. This began what would be a frosty relationship with the executive.
Your Excellency, you know I have respect for you as our president, and I have told you that. You also know that I have, for a long time now, unsuccessfully sought an appointment to discuss this issue with you, leaving me with no option but to raise the matter through this public statement.
More wrangles with the executive painted a picture of a government in fight with itself, the Chief Justice taking offense in what he called belittling the judiciary. When the judiciary was hard hit with crippling budget cuts, MARAGA hit back as defiant as ever.
It is on record that the President threatened to revisit. And the following financial year, we saw a reduction of the development vote of the judiciary budget from 2.1 billion to a paltry 50 million.
Things would get even interesting when a constitutional dispute over the appointment and swearing in of some 41 judges arose, with MARAGA shooting from the hip.
It is important to clearly and categorically state that this shortage of judges and the near paralysis of court operations has been caused by the President's refusal to swear in the 41 judges recommended by the Judicial Service Commission in July 2019 for appointment to the Court of Appeal, the Environment and Land Court, and the Employment and Labor Relations Court. The President has persisted in this refusal.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for
to swear those judges within 14 days.
And when everyone else thought the 14th Chief Justice would go home quiet, MARAGA was back again, this time asking President Uhuru Kenyatta for failing to meet the 2/3 gender constitutional requirement. But his degree of speaking his mind by invoking Article 167 of the Constitution earned him love and hatred in equal measure. Ahead of his official retirement on Monday, MARAGA had a final brawl with President Uhuru Kenyatta, poking holes into President Kenyatta and Odinga's push for constitutional amendment through the Building Bridges Initiative report, which seeks to introduce the office of a judicial ombudsman that will receive complaints against judicial staff. MARAGA's succession power play has come into effect, the latest signs of this being a petition filed by activist Okia Omtata seeking to block MARAGA's deputy Philomena Mwilu from taking up MARAGA's official duties in an acting capacity. Omtata arguing that there are already 4 cases questioning Mwilu's integrity and which are pending before the Judicial Service Commission. Among those in the race to replace MARAGA is the Court of Appeal President William Ouko and former Attorney General Githu Muigai, who resigned in January 2019, although the former AG has dismissed claims of wanting to return to public service. Also in the race is Supreme Court Judge Njoki Ndong'o, with Njoki's selection heavily relying on Mwilu's fate due to the gender parity question. MARAGA's successor is likely to be faced by backlog of cases, construction of court buildings, appointment of benches to handle some of the matters in court, appointment of judges, and the full rollout of some of the judiciary systems, among other intrays. Musa Salah, TV47.
Well, the Kenya National Union of Teachers Secretary General Wilson Sossion says the competency-based curriculum is not being implemented the way it should be, and this might affect children currently under the new curriculum. Nat also pointed an accusing finger at the Teachers Service Commission, claiming that the Commission's attempt to stifle the union will not succeed.
Having inked his play.
Teachers from all public primary schools and who are members of the Kenya National Union of Teachers are currently taking part in the election of their leaders. Overseeing the exercise in Baringo County, NAT Secretary General Wilson Sossion punched holes in the ongoing implementation of the competency-based curriculum.
The education system of Kenya is very strong. It is ranked #1 in Africa in terms of quality. Global competitiveness, it is because of a strong union called NAT. We were in Kashati Ominde report of 1964, Kashati of 1976, MAHIU, which produced 844. And that's why 844 was well researched and well tested, well piloted before rolled out. See kama ECBC, hii tunafanyia haraka. Kama Simon Makonde. The way it's being handled is right. A curriculum haiwezi tengenezwa kama Simon Makonde. It's a serious thing about students. And we cannot create a casual education system. I'm saying it so.
NAT accusing the Employer Teachers Service Commission TSC of trying to paralyze the union by infringing on the rights of teachers to be part of a union.
We cannot work when the employer is mischievously killing the morale of teachers and killing their union. So come on, the agency fee for NAT ipewe this January. Register irrigation. Then the union can work. We are a professional union and we need that money to run professional work, to support the government, not to sabotage the government. Are we together? Yes. And I want to tell the government of Kenya, the union dues that we receive are used for programs. They are not used for political activities. So hii mambo ya kusema NAT ikiwa na pesa mingi it will bring down the government is wrong. We are not criminals. We are responsible leaders.
Last week, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga said the Teachers Service Commission was on a mission to cripple NAT. Raila accused the commission of tampering with NAT's register, which saw its membership drop from 187,000 to 23,000. Raila urged the leadership of NAT and TSC to dialogue so as to solve the impasse existing between them. Delocalization of teachers was brought up in the meeting.
Delocalization, which is being brought forward by TSC in the name of national unity, I want to ask how many teachers who have been delocalized have achieved real results of national unity because they were localized.
In Kitui County, some of the teachers participating in the election vowed to continue getting involved in politics, contrary to what was communicated to them by TSC via a circular.
Every citizen of this republic has a right to support his party of choice. Walimu, they are citizens of this republic. So we are saying we cannot allow segregation that we are not participating in politics. We have a right to align ourselves to the political wing, which we think will assist us teachers.
We want to tell the employer that the circular we received last month is null and void. We are going to involve ourselves in politics 100%.
The union is currently having its general election running from 9th January to 20th March 2021. Sharon Baranga, TV47.
To a rather sad story, 2 people died in a road accident along the MAHIU Nairobi highway, as Willie Dennis Njiru reports from Naivasha.
Minutes past midday Sunday, a fatal accident claimed the lives of 2 occupants inside this vehicle that is said to have been caused by reckless driving or brake failure by this trailer that rammed onto 3 other vehicles. Eyewitnesses narrate that there was a hazard indicated by the ill-fated trailer that was headed to MAHIU in the opposite direction.
Gari venye niliona ikiteremuka iko na brake, ni kama ilikataa brake. Ile kuhepa juu hata huyu ndere ni kama alijaribu. Juu kuna Nissan ilikuwa hapa, angeuma hiyo Nissan.
Nilikuwa naona kwa side mirror, naona kalori inakuja na high speed. So nikashangaa kwani yeye amepataje nini hiyo haraka ako naye. So within few seconds ndio nikasikia imenichapa. Then within nini ikachapa the next vehicle. Then ikachapa hiyo ndio ikateremka.
The deceased were in the company of a regular team that was headed for Naivasha aboard a fleet of cars.
Huyu amekufa ni rafiki yangu, tulikuwa tunaenda trip Naivasha. Wakati tulikuwa tunaenda trip, ndio gari alikuwa wawili msichana, walikuwa 4 wameingia jam, wawili wameshuka, wawili wako gari, walikuwa wanatembea. Gari lori ndio ilikuwa imekuja imegongana.
Ikapandia hiyo basi yako kagari kadogo, ikapanda hiyo gari ndogo ikaisukumanisha mpaka huko. Trailer yenyewe pia ikaanguka huko chini.
The narrow meanders along this stretch of road have proven black spot over the years.
So gari zile zilikuwa zina move, ni zile gari zinatoka huko zikipanda. So trailer imetokea huko, in overtake from behind. Na uone hapo ni kwa kona, yellow line continuous. Nikaokoa dereva wa trailer, lakini dereva alikuwa amevunjika mkono. Nikapanda na teniboi wa trailer nikamleta mpaka hapa juu.
Sianta. Reporting for TV47 from MAHIU in Nakuru County, I'm Willie Dennis Njiru.
With us this morning on the State of the Nation Affair, Dr. Barak Muluka, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, Honorable Member of Parliament, and also Tongaran Member of Parliament, Honorable Eseli Simeyu. So keep it right here. We'll be back with more as we take a look at the papers.
Today's program lineup. What's the perfect way to kickstart your day in the morning? Well, apart from having a healthy breakfast, the morning cafe is all you need. We will when the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. we tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant and the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant and the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m.
Welcome back to the broadcast. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV47 is how you get to interact with us. Let's kickstart before we have the rest of the guests joining us. And yes, that is to mean that we have Dr. Barak Muluka on standby with me this morning. We briefly take a look at what is on the papers, and then later on with the rest of the guests, we'll be delving deep into the conversations. One, remember that we're talking the succession of politics on Matters 2022. We'll be discussing that and the politics of the weekend. We also take a look at what is left of the judiciary now that the CJ is officially gone, what it would mean in terms of this succession talk that is ongoing, and whether indeed he did the right thing in getting, that is, the DCJ on board to take up the mantle until a substantive CJ is recruited. That is something that is debatable, and many have questioned it, but all the same, here we are. And yes, we also be taking a look at that move by the likes of Honorable Mike Sonko, declaring that they will be out of the game. But is it just evident that indeed they're out of the game, or they will be actively involved in the politics of the day? So, karibu sana. Good to have you this morning.
Good to see you too.
Thank you. And now, before we delve into these ones, because I know we'll be discussing this, we'll be discussing the utterances of President Uhuru Kenyatta and other political leaders over the weekend, and just to get to understand why is it that this is being blown? I don't want to say it's being blown out of proportion, but reality is that indeed it has received a lot of reactions from different quarters. So we get to understand what this means and the ramifications of the same, especially at a point where Kenyans are so polarized in terms of their stance on matters politics. But first, there's this story that has been captured on page 8 of the People Daily that speaks of matters education. Education bosses face sack over school desks, and there's still so much on matters education, including that wrangle that exists therein between the unions and TAC, that is the commission, and also that conversation that has sparked or has come out as the NAT boss argues that the coming in of the competence-based curriculum is not being done as expected, and then this would mean that our students are not going to get a quality education. There's so much that is going on within the education sector.
Yes, to the extent that you really don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
We have seen that today the CS for Interior, Mheshimiwa Matiang'i, will be visiting some schools to find out about the arrangements that have been put in place against COVID-19.
Yeah.
One would expect that this should have been done before the children were recalled to school. We are a country that is distinguishing itself increasingly for placing the cart before the horse and expecting that the cart can pull the horse. Education is certainly in a quandary, in a mess in the country. Here is a situation where we are implementing a curriculum-based, competence-based curriculum that we did not take through the motions. What are the motions? The motions are that the initial proposition is made, that you bring in the Institute of Curriculum Development. It develops a white paper. The white paper goes before Cabinet. Cabinet says it's looking good. Then you go before Cabinet with Parliament with a blue paper that you then have a national education conference where you have educational experts. Because the Cabinet, the government has made certain propositions and it's agreed, but you now leave it to the experts. The experts in education hold various conferences around the country, and which may culminate in a national educational conference. Then you have a very clear sense of direction. Now, all these are based on one thing, the Kenya that we want, and the human competence that we need to propel us towards that Kenya that we want. so that then the Ministry of Planning and Development is also involved.
Incorporated.
And we now are very clear that by the year 3000, this country should be looking as follows, and it will need so many doctors, so many engineers, disaggregated as follows in the various denominations of engineering, so many doctors, so many. Okay, then we develop national values, we develop syllabuses that then begin driving that process.
Okay.
But here is a situation where we have children in school, say in Standard 4, and the Standard 5 syllabus has not been developed.
Okay.
The Standard 6 syllabus has not been developed.
So they're headed
Where
to,
are they going? Are they the River Wasonyiro, which is going to end up in the Lorian swamp? Nobody really cares where this is going to.
would you say that such is also what was followed when there was coming, like 844 was coming in? Was it a different view, and does it then mean that we discovered mistakes that we probably would have taken a different direction to solve before it gets to this point?
To a smaller extent, a lesser extent, Linda, in the sense that 844, there wasn't much research before the pronouncement was made that we were going to change to a different curriculum. President MAAI, returning home from an overseas visit, pronounced one day that we are going to change. There's need to change education, and we are going to change. Then he assembled professionals in education to begin working on how to change the curriculum, led of course by Professor MAHIU of Canada. But 844 went through very systematic motions before it eventually began being implemented. We looked at everything in terms of the classrooms, the physical space, the workshops, the preparation of teachers, the development of the syllabuses, the educational teaching aids, the books and other aids, the funds that would go towards that. And I think that our running down of 844, berating it every so often, is a matter of pushing certain hackneyed agenda, people saying things that they have not quite understood. And each time I speak in defense of 844, I remind the world that I'm a product of the older system. I'm not a product of 844.
So
I have no access to grind, and the only thing that I have to speak for is my country, and I can say that we were better off when we were dealing with 844 than we are now, just walking in the dark.
Well, and as they would say, the train has left the station, no turning back. But of course, with all these fears, we can only hope that at some point we're able to get it right.
Well, if it doesn't stop, it could also break down. Stopping is a conscious, the product of a conscious decision that the train will stop. But if it doesn't stop out of conscious efforts, it could also run out of fuel, or it could break down.
And which is not a good thing
and
for
which
our
nobody
children,
desires.
All right. It's a developing story, and different views coming in regards to the same. We can only hope that the stakeholders incorporate all this together for the benefit of our students. Confessions of a son who killed family. Do you?
Yeah, we are in a bad place, and I'm happy that I'm not stealing the thunder from you, but I'm happy that Dr.
We have Honorable Esili Doctor here.
Is here. He needs to tell us whether we are a sick nation. We take ourselves through very traumatic, very traumatizing happenings as a country, and we never seem to have an opportunity to find healing at various levels.
Yeah.
And I think that malady finds its way in all places. If you just look at news footage over the past 10 or so days, it is shocking. People who are just slaying others, people who are just kidnapping others, and it's very, very traumatizing.
Right.
I think as a nation, we are in need of a psychological and maybe psychiatric therapy that should help us to begin healing. But it's also a factor of just how very violent and combative we are as a people. And it's not just about physical violence. There's a verbal violence, there's violence in the language that we use against each other. Our conversations are not conversations, they are exercises in vitriol, in diatribe, in insolence. And I think that the mess finds its way everywhere.
Crime going down all the way to the children. Well, it's pretty much unfortunate. And yes, we come back, expound some more on what is on the papers, even as we get to the discussion. We already have Honorable MAHIU with us. Before we get him on board, let's first take a look at this. No, we first take a short break.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals. Kitchen hacks.
Back to the broadcast. And just before we went for break, we're looking at the newspapers, and you realize that most of the stories that are captured in the newspapers are the very same stories that we'll be discussing or we'll be pondering on or decipher some more. In regards to this, of course, we speak about the politics of the nation, the politics of the weekend, what took center stage and what it has brought to the fore in regards to just how honest we are in having these conversations on matters politics. And that is also captured on the Daily Nation and equally on the front page of the People Daily, what it is that we had earlier on, that is on Ruto Uhuru State House is not about tribe, and equally is a story that is on the Standard newspaper, so we'll be discussing that. So that then means we do not delve deep into the newspapers door-to-door search for learners in 2 weeks, technically what we've talked about on matters education, and that letter of Senator Irungu Kangata still, of course, bringing us a bit of a development in regards to the same. And so we discussed that, and also we do not fail to discuss the exit of CJ David MARAGA and what then this would mean for the judiciary and how best can we ensure that we get a good replacement for him. So that's what we'll be discussing. And still with me, Dr. Barak Muluka, and joining us now, that is officially, because he was still there even before, like we took a break, we have Honorable Eseli Simi, who's the Member of Parliament, Tongaren. And good to have you, Mheshimiwa, this morning. And yes, we've been discussing the politics of the nation. We've been talking about the aspect of, education in the nation. And I guess we're going to drop matters education and we cross over to what it is that brings us here this morning. The politics of the weekend, the utterances of President Uhuru Kenyatta. I know much has been said in regards to this, but then again, there are still developments that culminate out of it. There are numerous ways of viewing his statements and, just trying to understand why is it that people have read so much into it? Is it because it has been said by the president? And would you say that it is unfortunate that is coming out of him in as much as there's some level of truth that comes along with that statement?
First, I would like to say that as Kenyans, I think, yes, we need to have a conversation with each other, but the way we are going about it is all wrong.
Okay.
It's all wrong from both sides, because both sides are insightful. And that will not help the country at all.
Right.
And I think this is happening because I want to look at it more globally. I think there's been a lot of stress. There's been a lot of stress all over the world.
Right.
And people are reacting in a totally different way. You saw what happened in the USA. You see what's happening in the UK. In the UK, the Prime Minister there has a problem. His family did not support the Brexit. And in fact, his father wants to go and be a French citizen. Then you come here in Kenya, where you find the president and his deputy are not reading from the same page. And it sets a very bad precedent. Because in fact, what it means is that if this becomes the norm, then even the next president will have a problem with his deputy. Yeah, because we've set a precedent and it's not right. I think it's important that we realize when we hold positions of leadership that whatever we say, many people will hang on it. Every
word you say. So if say they are my supporters, they'll hang on every word that I say. If they are your supporters, they'll hang on every word that you say.
Fortunately or unfortunately, we hang on these words maybe shortly, and it just raises political temperatures, and we tend to forget that. And that was just a way of trying to pull a mic test on you. And now it's time that we listen into some of the utterances, and then we come back. Now we base our conversation on basis of what exactly it is that was said.
Please crack the whip. Hii ngozi nyeusi usipochunga, you will find them in your bedroom. And the losers, it will be you.
Miaka 2, miaka 7, miaka 8. Alafu mkatoka kule nikawa waziri mkuu wa taifa hii. So it is possible to come from nothing and be something. Kwa nini naambiwa ati mimi hasa mimi nimetoka kwa ufukara? Hiyo ni nini? Takataka.
Na mimi natoka kabila ndogo, na nawaambia nyinyi ambao nyinyi wa kabila kubwa hapa, tupeleke Kenya hii polepole. Lakini we know whom we cannot leave the country to, kwa sababu pia tunajua ya kwamba kuna wakora.
Atuoli na wewe Seneta Malala, musione simba amenyeshewa ufikirie ni paka. Watu wapige ile wanataka kupiga, waandike ile mabarua wanataka kuandika. I am in charge of this government and I am in control of what we are doing. Kama hiyo ndio thinking ama logic, hata mimi naweza nisimame hapa basi niseme kuna jamii tu 2 za Kenya ambazo zimetawala, labda ni nafasi ya jamii nyingine pia kutawala. Hao ni namna gani jameni?
State of the Nation address, I want to request President Uhuru Kenyatta to correct the things he did yesterday in Kakamega and restate the true position of the country as a nation where we will organize ourselves, not based on tribes, not based on religion, not based on sectarianism, but based as a one.
Kiendelea hivyo, musishangae wengine wakisema watoto wa kabila hii hawafai kuajiriwa kwa serikali. Watoto wa kabila hii hawafai kupewa kazi ya polisi ama ya jeshi. Musishangae tukianza kuambiwa watu wa jamii fulani ama ingine hawafai kuishi eneo hili, hawafai kufanya biashara eneo lingine la Kenya hii.
Conversations are about excluding other people. It is about telling others that wewe huwezi kukuja hapa because you come from this place or the other.
Rais anashauriwa kuumiza ni wale waliombea yeye wakampatia kura akakuwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Tena isipokuwa wajui, kama wangetoka area hii wangejua hakuna mtu ya kuumizwa. Tayari watu wameumizwa zaidi, hawezi kuumizwa kuliko hapo.
The dreams of those hustlers that I represent, and the dreams of the hustlers and the children of hustlers that I represent, those dreams cannot be achieved because ati mtu moja ya kabila yao amefika kwenye wanataka kufika. Their dreams are separate from any other individual in the...
Kuwe watu ambao ni waaminifu, kwa sababu tulisema ya Uhuru 10 na ya Ruto, ya Uhuru 10 na ya Ruto.
Wamepata wasiwasi kwa sababu biashara yao ya ukabila na bei ya ukabila Kenya imepungua, na hasara itapatikana kwa biashara yao kwa sababu Wakenya hawataki kuuziwa ukabila tena, wanataka kuuziwa sera. It is not a must, it is not a condition that William Ruto or anybody must be president, but it is a must that we must all sit on the table. It is not negotiable.
Well, I am curious, and I'd love to probably understand, just as many other Kenyans would want to understand, these two scenarios. Scenario number one, the fact that, there are people who argue that we cannot be having the same families at the helm, at the top of the helm. And another scenario where there is another lot that argues we should not have the same tribes at the top of the helm. Just how different are these two scenarios, Barack?
Yeah, first, Linda, I think that dynasties do exist. And they have existed in history throughout the world, and there's nothing wrong with a dynasty. What may be wrong is what the dynasty is doing. And dynasties are measured within timelines and within spaces. So that in our context as a Kenyan nation, if we were to talk about dynasty, first we would distinguish between hereditary dynasties, and we would also have, on the other hand, non-hereditary dynasties. In the world history, we talk today about the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty in India, which basically is talking about leadership from the two families of Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, and which was not or is not a hereditary dynasty. Once you put your footprint on leadership, for example, Mheshimiwa Dr. Seri Simiyu here, then in the future, his progeny may also be interested in walking in those footsteps. There's absolutely nothing wrong about that, and we should not put each other on the defensive in that regard. I should not put you in the defensive, nor should you feel that you have to defend yourself. Because in any case, if we were to look at the people who are today being described as dynasties, some of them come from families that have had leadership right from the colonial days. If you read Raila Odinga's biography, Cry of Freedom, you will find how he describes his family on both sides, maternal, paternal, and it's a chieftainship kind of family. And I think there's nothing wrong about that. If they ascend to power, what they do with power, how they manage us is the issue, in my view. But I think there's also a sense in which we are getting to a very dangerous place, that the conversation has become exceedingly hostile on both sides of the political divide. Whether you are speaking the hustler language or you are speaking the dynasty language, you can see that the thrust is increasingly violent. It's as if we are preparing the stage for the final confrontation. You can see that the Secretary General of the Trade Workers Movement is saying crack the whip, and you must know where he's coming from, because this Francis Atwoli is a carryover from the draconian KANU days. And as Secretary General of KOTU, he no longer speaks for the workers. He speaks for a portion of the political dispensation, and of course he has other people on the other side who also speak for another portion of the political dispensation, and therefore the trade union movement in Kenya is just a step or two behind North Korea, where the president is also the Secretary General of the National Trade Workers.
And almost instantly, allow me to cut you, and almost instantly one would say the president cracked the whip. And so why is it that it's leaving a bad taste in the mouths of many?
As I said earlier, I think we have reached a point where each is trying to provoke the other and get the worst side of them. And I think the most unfortunate thing is the presidency, because we should not have a situation where the president and the deputy are throwing words at each other through the media, in public meetings, funerals, and so on. It's very unfortunate. For example, if I were the DP I would hunker down. I'll go down. Nitavunjika kidogo niwachie rais.
Right.
Even if there's something I don't like, I'll approach him in private. Because I think as a nation, we need to respect the presidency under the new constitutional dispensation. Not just the individuals, but the office and what it represents. I think it's not good, even if we disagree with what the president is saying, and I've disagreed with what the president is saying many times, but I find proper words to use to maybe say I'm not happy with this or that. But this throwing words at each other, and in the process, we are, as Muluk Barak says, we are setting a stage, a very dangerous stage for 2022. And we have an example right away from a developed country, the USA. Trump set the stage over a period of time, and that culminated in the raid on the Capitol. And I think we as a nation, we need to be very careful. Because even when we talk about hustlers and dynasties and so on, okay, for me, if I were to categorize myself, then I'm a dynasty. Because my father happened to have been a councillor in the 80s and early 90s.
Yes,
an uncle of mine, a maternal uncle of mine, happened to have been an MP in the Kakamega County some years back. Then now I'm a member of parliament. Then I've heard the deputy president also saying, this so-and-so was a son of a chief. So he's categorized, therefore, as having had it easy. It is wrong, because many people have actually their own story to tell. Even that person, like for example, if I were to look at my father, who had ended up being a councillor and the vice chairman of the county council for a while, was actually an orphan. It's his elder brothers who made sure he went to school. And so he struggled. So that the fact that I'm a son of that kind of person should not mean that therefore I'm wrong. And remember, those people saying that have children. They have children who then, if we follow that narrative, will mean that their children should be denied positions of leadership because their parents were either senators or they were either whatever. No, I think the danger here is this country's problem, if we are talking about dynasties, is not actually the family dynasties. This country's problem, we must face it head on. It is tribalism, it is impunity and corruption.
And therefore then it means we are
impunity and corruption, they don't know any tribe. So even if we are talking about dynasties and hustlers and so on, let's look at where did the rain start beating us? It started beating us from independence. At independence, we created a very bad scenario of impunity, corruption, and tribalism.
Well, if tribalism is an issue, then for a moment, then we'd say the people who are castigating President Uhuru Kenyatta's utterances are justified. But before we come to that,
and corruption. Yes. And when you look at the galaxy of all these people from both sides saying whatever and whatever, you'll find that they are all interwoven in this web of impunity, tribalism, and corruption. Both sides. So I think we are trying to run away from the problem we created in this country from independence, that we kept on watering that problem, and it has now become very big, such that more than 3/4 of the country are disenfranchised. Then we want to turn that disenfranchised part of the country to now fight what they perceive to be the franchised. Yet some of those so-called franchised have actually fought their way up. You know,
but
so
wait a minute. Maybe then
here.
the statement of Barak comes in. That statement of we really should not have a problem with the dynasties or whatever tribe of an individual, but the problem should then culminate from what it is that they're doing. And evidently, in black and white, we know the few who would be considered as dynasties, and they've been at the top of the helm. And honestly, they've not managed to deal with the problems that Honorable MAHIU speaks of. So does it then mean that we honestly need to rule them out as it stands?
And it's both no, I don't think that locking somebody out is the solution to the challenges before us. I was born wherever it was that I was born, not out of choice. All of us are accidents, social accidents. You are not there to negotiate with your progenitors and ending up being born somewhere, being of a certain bloodline. And I shouldn't be demonized because I come from such and such a family. Okay, and as families, we also have got our strong points. He comes from what is essentially a political family, and they're going to be playing politics for a very long time. And I'm using playing politics in a positive and constructive way. Other people are going to be playing football for a long time, and others will be doing anchorage as you are doing for a long time. And, their business dynasties and so on. What we need to be talking about is social justice, that those who ascend to positions of authority, positions of power, must never forget that they ascend into those positions for the good of their nations, the country, and the people. The tribe is used as a shield to cover very many bad things that those who for the time being are in power are doing, and those who aspire to get into power would also like to do. Otherwise, we would be asking ourselves, why is it that the conversation has never changed? What we are talking about now as the dynasties versus the hustlers, the conversation is not new. It is just the idiom that has changed a little bit, because in the 1960s and 70s, 80s, we were talking about the haves and the have-nots. It's essentially the same thing. And I agree with Dr. Eseli Simiyu that it is a congenital problem. The country was born, the new nation was born with that problem. And perhaps it goes a little bit back into the colonial dispensation. If you look at central Kenya, where this dynasty's conversation seems to have picked up even more than anywhere else, perhaps second only to the Rift Valley, you will see that there are such phenomena as the home guard families, and which enjoyed certain privileges and advantages that they carried right into independence. Addressing my brother, Honorable Dr. Eseli Simiyu and his colleagues, the TJRC report is sitting in Parliament. It is gathering dust in Parliament. It offers us one of the best avenues to rest this question once and for all. We spend a lot of time, money, and other resources in putting up this report. Whatever deficiencies it may have, it would be a useful starting point. But finally, for anybody within the institutions of influence, whether it's within the media, whether it is within the faith-based communities, one of the first things we must do is to resist the temptation to prop up either side of this debate, and to find moments and energies of beginning to position this country for a sober national conversation before next year's election. The window of opportunity is fast closing down. And we have reached the point where those whom we would count upon to lead us in holding a sober national conversation have lost the plot. The president has lost the plot. The people who work with him, his deputy, the trade union movement, they have lost the plot. Occasionally you hear even some in the faith-based community, they have lost the plot. All of us must place this country first.
But why discuss or why have such grounds for 2022, the next general elections, as opposed to a long-term approach of it?
The center of power seems to be very sweet, to the extent that if you look at Uganda next door, those who get there do not want to leave. Or if they leave, if you look at DRC, they still want to exercise influence. If you look at the United States of America, this is a race to the center of power. And since 1992, the moment we finish one election, we begin the campaigns for the next election. And it has been building up. It's getting to a very dangerous crescendo. This energy that cumulatively, in 1992, we had youthful generations, and when I say youthful, I would be saying between, say, even 18 to 30, 35, who knew of different ways of managing elections, managing public conversations. Today, in 2021, if you go back to 1992 to 2021, you are talking of about 31, 32 years. You have a mature generation that does not know any other language apart from the language of toxic politics.
And maybe...
And so we are in a very bad place if we do not slow down the brakes. If we have people addressing, gathering at a funeral, and they are calling others angrily, taka taka, and then these others go to church the next day, and they are berating the president, and they are telling him, bring it on. My friends, my fellow Kenyans, I look you in the eye and I tell you, you are facing havoc.
We probably could be having solutions in these crucial documents that you speak of, the TJRC, and the numerous other documents that we've had in terms of trying to just find a truce and, achieve redemption strategy, address the issues of historical injustices and all that. And also, in as much as we'd say President Uhuru Kenyatta has probably lost it, like you rightfully put it, he argues that within the BBI, which is now another document that is being presented, we could be getting solutions to some of these, and long-term solutions for that matter. Honorable Eseli Simiyu is a proponent of the BBI. Do you suppose that indeed within this document we can get to address some of these issues that we speak of electioneering periods being toxic, being, pretty much of bad scenarios?
It will address part of the problems, but not all of them. As I told you, our biggest problem is, I would call it the leadership. That includes me. What's our mindset? You see, if one is a beneficiary of the past impunity, the past tribalism, the past corruption, that person definitely is not in the right position to do much change. Unless he's surrounded by people who really want to do the change. But if he's surrounded with similar characters, you don't expect much change.
What does it speak of the BBI currently? Because we know very well
where the BBI comes in, therefore, is if we are able to open up this space, so that at least at that leadership table, there are more people, and we ensure, now that's the IEBC part, that the IEBC is letting people on the ballot who actually are, what do I say, they have the moral fiber to be on that ballot. Because if we allow what we call democracy, the way we do it here, that people with a lot of baggage, which is in the public domain, they know that Dr. Eseli there has got all this baggage of the past, which includes that, what are the three enemies I've talked about: corruption, impunity, and tribalism. And you allow that person on the ballot, that person tends to be very populist, and that's one danger that not just Kenya, many parts of the world in democracy face. That populism, before you actually look at that person properly, then you allow that person on the ballot.
Okay.
You easily stoke danger. Remember, Hitler in Germany was elected. He did not overthrow the government, and he was very popular. But look at where his populist whatever has led Germany to. Germany is still embarrassed about it up to now. So we in Africa, and especially Kenya, we face that danger. Perhaps we need to, I'm not saying that Ghana is perfect, perhaps we need to look at how Ghana has managed so far, because it's an emerging democracy with a lot of problems, tribalism and all that.
All right.
But I feel they are trying to do better than we are doing, because you find their elections are very close, but you don't have the eruption that we get here.
Okay.
So there are some things that we need to look at. But I still insist that our main problem, and until and unless we as the leadership of this country sit down and ensure that this impunity, corruption, and tribalism is put to an end, I can assure you, whoever takes over, whoever is president, will not change anything. Because when you go down to the counties, even when we increase the devolved funds to 35% to those counties, you still find at the county level, because of that hangover of the past, we still get that now discrimination boils down to clans. You know? It boils down to clans, and then you find the corruption is still there.
Yeah.
And it can't grow a nation.
Okay.
And that, I think that's, we are missing the point. What we are trying to address here is who should lead the country and who among those people.
Okay.
But we are not really addressing the problem of the country. Even those who are saying hustlers and dynasties, they are not really addressing the problem. Who created these hustlers? Who created these many poor unemployed youth? It's the system that has not been, how do I call it? Has not been long-term planning for the future. Because we know very well that with this young, youthful generation, it means more young people are coming, because the youthful generation are also the ones that are still making children. So it means that the population is exploding forever. Are we sitting down to plan for it? Okay, even the church says they are against family planning. But are we able to sustain the population growth?
Yeah.
Because that's one, that's one area everybody has neglected. Yet that is the part of the problem, and nobody is addressing it. And these young people, unless they get sound leadership, they are the ones who are bound to fall into the spell.
Okay.
That when Asonko comes around and gives them several goodies, they fall into that spell. And then the populist politician can easily lead them, and that person has got no solutions for them.
Well, it's evident.
They're not willing to sit down and actually look at the real work. The real work of leading a nation is not these many speeches at churches and funerals. The real work of leading the nation is having a proper plan on how you want to elevate the problems of the country. And the Kenya's problems are getting worse. And we are not an isolated country. COVID has made matters even worse. And I can assure you, the stress of COVID, I believe, has played a role in many things that you are seeing happening, which are just outlandish.
Right.
Like when you find what happened in the US, that's stress from the COVID lockdowns. What's happening in this country? The stress of lost incomes, the stress that you had a very low income and it's even gone, and you don't know where you will go, and they're telling you now your kids have to go to school, you have to pay this, you have to pay that. That stress alone. Then you now create the narrative of hustler dynasty. You've got a powder keg waiting to explode.
And speaking of which, then
the moment they get in there, and they are not able to elevate the problems of the hustlers, you've set a dangerous precedent.
Well, the role of the electorate then is crucial in this one. But even before we come to the role of the electorate and just how instrumental it is for them to go out there and make wise decisions in terms of the leadership that they bring on board, and also how best they get to react to some of the utterances from them, I think it is only fair that we, not really delve delve much on it, but we just look at the utterances of the president, and what it is that, the Constitution speaks about, of him being the symbol of unity, and why is it that then so much is being read into this particular statement. Don't you suppose then it's just something that really was bound to come up after all? Because in as much as we might want to overlook this, the talk of tribalism is one thing that does not go away from us. We all cross fingers and hope that indeed it goes away from us, but reality is that we are engraved totally in our tribes.
Yeah, first, the president is a human being, like all of us.
Yes.
I don't speak for him. He has his spokespersons in State House and in the OP. But as a student of human beings, I know that the president is first and foremost human.
Yeah.
And even this stress, he's also soaking it in
into him,
at his own level.
Yeah.
At a personal level, he may have the comforts that he requires. However, he's in charge of a country that is broke, a country that is seeking to go to Parliament to ask Honorable Dr. Selismiu and others to raise the borrowing ceilings from 9 trillion to 12 trillion. He is wrestling with things like finding funds to send to the devolved units, salaries for the public sector, monies to pay for, to repay foreign debts. We are also asking him, we need to see development, and so on and so forth. And if he has been sitting at a funeral for 6 hours and listening to people talking about how and when he should vacate that office and who should take over, he's bound to explode at some moment. Those who handle and manage him need to find ways of holding good counsel with him.
Is there anything that is rocket science or anything that is strange of everything that you've mentioned for a president who went out there to campaign, expected, to be voted in and was voted in? And here
Linda, this takes us to the heart of the question that you have asked me about tribes and tribalism. You see, first, we never see any tribe on the ballot paper. And I think it is wrong to say that this tribe has been ruling, this tribe has been. At some point in this country, I come from the Luya community or tribe, if you want. My tribe had the highest number of cabinet ministers. Selismiu, you come from the same community with me, and you'll want to agree with me that both under Presidents MAAI and President MAAI Kibaki, at some point our community had the highest number in the cabinet. As Barak, as my family, as my village in Emanyudia, we did not enjoy any benefits.
Because they didn't practice impunity, they didn't practice tribalism.
Oh, is it so?
Yes. they didn't practice that high level corruption. Perhaps. That's why we didn't feel we didn't feel that.
We need therefore to be addressing the core values that we have pronounced in our constitution as a solution, because what I hear the president to be saying is that these two tribes have eaten too much. Let us now have another tribe going there to do what our tribes have done. That will not solve our issues. Then we have been told that let us expand the cake so that the space around the cake so that it can accommodate 5. What does it mean to have 5 tribes? There are well over 40 tribes in the country. The president from time to time talks of between 45 and 47 tribes. Where are you leaving the rest of these tribes? You are not solving our problem. Again, when you listen to the hustler conversation, I want to agree with my brother here that It is rich in its emotive perspective, but poor in offering actual interventions, lines of interventions. Can you break it down and now start telling us how you are going to help to transform our lives as hustlers, because you actually have your finger on what we consider to be our challenges. But how are you going to address them practically? Now, as a country, we have denied ourselves the opportunity to have that conversation, because you have one side saying, hey, this is dangerous, we can't have this conversation. The other side is saying, no, 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 this is a conversation we must have. And I think the Deputy President said something like, there's no compromise or something like that. But allow me to very finally footnote this with what my brother has said about Ghana. And Ghana seems to be slightly ahead of the rest of us. Ghana did not get there the easy way. Jerry Rawlings, Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings, God rest his soul in eternal peace, Rawlings rolled into power, into political power twice. He was a flight lieutenant in the military. The first time he took over in 1979, he took 5 former heads of state to the beach and had them shot dead by a firing squad. That was the beginning of the transformation in Ghana. And when he handed power back to civilians, they did not seem to have learned the lessons of the 1957 to 1979 period. And so in 1981, he rolled back into power a second time and very ruthlessly shook up the institutions that we now see as providing democracy. If indeed we have got to make a break with the past,
we need a Jerry Rawlings.
We perhaps need a Jerry Rawlings. And we are not going to say that we isolate certain individuals. Like there's been a lot of conversation around the Deputy President. And I will refrain from attempting to speak for him, okay? Because he too has got people who speak for him, like our President Uhuru Kenyatta. But there's been this kind of focus on him. It is called scapegoatism. In traditional societies where they had problems in primitive societies, they looked for a goat and they brought it there. And they said, me, I've stolen, it is because of this goat. Another one came and said, me, I have raped, it's because of this goat. Another one killed and they said it's because of this goat. So the scapegoat took all the blame and it was pushed down the cliff. It cannot be that way. All these people, we perhaps need to make a clean break with the past so that we draw a very clear line. And we say, you have been there, you are not part of it. If you want to give us a new constitution on the way ahead, fair and square. But as soon as it is done, the whole lot and caboodle of you should go into quiet, peaceful retirement. Any one of you who raises their finger or voice, we deal with you.
Well, in the quest of finding solutions, like we speak of, and you know, in the quest of finding, I mean, at least every other person is, you know, being represented on the table, or, you know, being part and parcel of the table. And in the quest of seeking unity and all these answers, one would probably have expected that there would be so much excitement, greeting the utterances of President Uhuru Kenyatta, especially coming from the Mulembe Nation, now that he speaks of, getting another tribe at the top of the helm. And we all have seen how the Mulembe Nation has been positioning itself towards saying that, we'd want to get our very own at the top of the helm. Why is it then that this is not what was felt?
One thing, on the part of the Mulembe Nation, I would say that the Mulembe Nation is still in trouble because, for one, to purport to lead a people, the people must resonate with you, your thinking, and they feel that you are actually doing what, representing them in the various arenas and so on. But you can't just come and imagine that they'll elevate you there as their leader when really what you've done is nothing. All you do is make funeral speeches. Your Luya nationalism only shows up at funerals. That cannot help. But then, on the other hand, I'm going to say something that perhaps people might find very unpalatable and might find, they'll even call me names for that matter. But I'll say that the Hustler Nation narrative is a decoy. It's a decoy to get people away from the tribalism that permeates the political space. And when the president mentions about the two tribes, people want to run away from it as if it's not a fact. It is a fact. And even Barak here said that when you look at the way that that dynasty hustler thing has really taken the Rift Valley and the central region so seriously, and yet those are the only two that have been at the helm, is because the people who have benefited from that, their people being in power, have not been very kind to the population. So that's why there's that anger. Now they want to transfer that anger to the rest of the country, yet the rest of the country did not participate in this in these shenanigans. Now I'll even be worse than that. Apart from that Hustler Nation narrative being a decoy, and it's just supposed to divert people from the tribals because they don't want to talk about the tribalism. It's not the benefit of that group pushing the Hustler Nation to talk about tribes, because then they will lose. So that's why they are pushing this Hustler thing to override the tribal thing. But still, it doesn't stop the fact that it's the two communities. Now, if you could go back to what you showed us at the church, I'll point out something very dangerous.
You want us to play that?
Yes.
Madam Director, can we have the reactions of the Tanga Tanga?
Play it. Let me just say, if you play it, you'll notice that the people making all that noise are from the same two communities. Yes. But if you play that clip in the church, yes. All those people making that noise are either from Rift Valley or from the Mount Kenya. Why are they scared about talking about the tribalism that has been in this country since independence?
We have the likes of Didmas Baraza, don't forget that. We have the likes of Boni Khalwale. He was not there, yes.
Those ones are garnishing.
Let's get
Boni
the clip.
Khalwale and Didmas Baraza are garnishing. They are supposed to, even like the new party is headed by Mudhama and Kina Khalwale and Kina former Senator Omar and so on. These are just garnishing to give it a proper national image. But really, when you look at who spewed most of the vitriol at that church, they're from the two areas, Rift Valley and Mount Kenya. So that tells you this thing is so ingrained. For us in Western, when we talk about dynasties and the hustlers, there isn't much of dynasties there. I mean, that's the people who have benefited from the impunity, corruption, and tribalism of this country. There are very few. So the hustler dynasty thing, there isn't much. So what you end up doing is that you capture more than over 7/8 of Western. Because when you look at this country economically, Western is the poorest. You know that Western is even poorer than Northeastern on an individual basis, per capita income. Western is even poorer. So if you are going to capture the poor people, then Western should be the first one on board. But you see, we don't want to talk about who caused that poverty. Who made these people so impoverished and yet they are part of the country? Who did that? They don't want to talk about that. They want to say, no, it's those dynasties. It's those dynasties. No. People who themselves have been beneficiaries of the dynasties.
It is the dynasties.
But is it
there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that it has been the dynasties. It doesn't matter that Ruto may have also joined the dynasties and that he tries to disengage and separate himself from the dynasties. He becomes part and parcel of the dynastic dispensation in the country. And as a non-member of the dynastic space, I recognize all in the dynasty for what they are. And when I see the confrontation between Ruto and Uhuru, it is the case of the hyena wanting to eat one of its children. When the hyena wants to eat one of the cubs, it says, this child is smelling like a goat. Yeah? That means they are ready to start eating it. It's one of their own. So there are business dynasties in this country. There are political dynasties in this country. And they are the ones that have led the country where it is. It has not been some strangers from Mars who have come and done as what they have done.
So then what does
business dynasties.
Yes. They're called entrepreneurs.
No, just a moment, Barak. I'm not against you. I just want to. There are serious business dynasties in this country that do genuine business, and over time, they have actually become wealthy. But you don't see them throwing their wealth all over. They are philanthropic. You find them building things in hospitals. You find them building schools here and there. Then there are others who want to call themselves business dynasties, but what they are is actually a criminal ring.
I accept.
That extorts government coffers.
I accept that.
And they want to argue that they are business dynasties.
That
they are not.
Dr. Eseli Simiyu
so these dynasties I'm talking about are beneficiaries of the corruption and impunity and tribalism of this country.
Yes.
Now those ones, once the power is removed from them, their so-called business implodes.
Yes. So there are those characters, therefore, who have impoverished the country. They have raped the country. It doesn't matter that they have gotten to the center of the political space and they have used that space to expand their grip on the national economy for terrible reasons. When they get there, their primary objective is on enriching themselves. Every development project and agenda that they get into is eventually about themselves, whether they are building schools or they are constructing roads or they are building hospitals or railway lines or whatever it is. And I'm not talking about any specific railway line. I'm just talking about that practice generally. It is called in political science prebendalism. And prebendalism is about corruption and theft as one of the foremost benefits of being in power, in political power. You get there with the clear knowledge that corruption and theft is part of the benefits. And therefore, in my view, we need not isolate any individual that we may consider to be an errant member of the club. Let us just look at the whole thing in a globalized context and say, what will we put them in one basket and throw it into the Indian Ocean or set it on fire, or what are we going to do? Because the pot calls the kettle black.
And true to it, the electorate then comes in a minute or so before we take a quick break. The electorate is privy to all this information, is privy to all this that is happening, yet they do not really do much. Do they really have...
Because we've normalized corruption.
We've
normalized it, and in fact you hear some of them saying he might be a thief, but he's our thief, he shares with us. You've heard that kind of saying. That, which is the problem. After all these years since independence, we've actually normalized theft of public resources. And in fact, if you are a senior public servant and you don't participate in that theft, your people say you are a fool, you didn't want to help them, ungekuchukua pia utulete, you know. That is how bad we have gotten now. And it's not good for us. That's why we need some really radical change. And I'm afraid that yes, the Hustler dynasty conversation, when it does explode, it might be worse than we are thinking. Because you can imagine if it exploded and all the populists were the ones leading. So now it's Sonko types who are now leading because they're the popular ones. And the youthful
but
that's the beginning of the implosion of the country. The best way right now is let's look at the Electoral Commission seriously. Let's give them the teeth to bite. Who actually gets on the ballot is very key. Because if you allow these people with the dubious background, dubious pasts, public service pasts, getting on that ballot, they are going up there and they're continuing to perpetuate the same thing. So we need to look at that law very carefully. Then number two, the institutions that we have put in place. Unfortunately, they are also, they are also
flawed.
They are also flawed with the same three problems that I'm talking about. But they are the ones who are supposed to take out these bad people out of public service and put them where they belong. So I would say that if I were to become president, I would keep quiet for about a year. And the thing I'll be doing is I'll look at the farthest corner of the country and I'll build a very massive jail. And then the second year, I'll start taking people there and make them reclaim the desert there.
You might want to review this aspect or this clause that speaks of your innocence until you're proven guilty.
They will get there, and because he has put them together, they will form a club
and they will
conspire against him. You hear them all the time talking about unity. The unity they talk about is called conspiracy, because unity is as good as the purpose for which people unite. If people unite for a bad purpose, if they say, let us expand this so that it's not 2, it is 5 or 10 or 15, because when there are only 2, we keep on fighting each other. It is conspiracy. It's just that the circle of conspirators has expanded. Now, if we cannot go back to the TJRC and address it with the kind of candor that the South Africans addressed their problems, and which of course they haven't solved 100%, there is going to arise in this country, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in 2022 or 23, but there will come a time in this country when Jerry Rawlings will rise to power through Jerry Rawlings' methods. It doesn't matter where and when. I'm now old enough to say such things to my country. And that Jerry Rawlings will roll all these people into one bundle and set it on fire. And I want us to be very clear about one thing. When we talk about the things that we call the haves and have-nots, these are very relativistic things. There is a fellow who looks at you in the old third-hand junkie that you bought from somebody who bought it from someone who brought it from Japan when it was already old, and they think that you are a dynasty. They think that you are a very rich person. Daktari, when that time comes, and it's approaching very fast, even the Sonkos will not survive. It does not happen that way. If you look at Sierra Leone and you look at the Komajos and the others, what they were doing was that they were fighting. You had two sides of the wretched of the earth fighting, and they would fight, and when they get to Muthaiga, they call a ceasefire. They come in and loot, and after they have finished looting, they resume fighting. They come past Kawangware, when they get to Lavington, Mudangari, they stop fighting, they loot, and it will be the same thing everywhere, in the villages, in the hamlets, and so on. I'm not a prophet of doom, but I'm telling those who are in power for the time being that this is what you are preparing this country for. So let this country begin having a very sober conversation with itself, and I keep going back to the TJRC report.
Really?
The TJRC report can only be done and implemented when there's political will. That political will to implement that TJRC report is not there. That's why it has sat there now how many years?
It's more than 10 years. It came out under President Kibaki.
Yeah. So even if we sit here and say implement that TJRC report, and there's no political will to implement it, because it will rock the boat, and nobody wants to rock the boat.
Well, so there's political will to get more documents that are similar to this.
What you require is good thinking Kenyans who understand what these problems are, need to come together and start a different conversation and eventually aim for taking over the leadership through the ballot. But it has to be very fast.
Right.
Because if you recall, to change the constitution from the one-party state to multi-party state, there was a lot of the leadership that came together to do this. These were young people, and they came together to get that change done. And by doing that, it saved the country. Because if it had continued on as a single-party affair, we were heading down the tubes.
Right.
And that's what we need now. The problem we have right now is the majority of these people who now call themselves the middle class are beneficiaries of the corruption. So many of them are unable to sit at a table and say, let's do this to stop this. Because quite a number of them are beneficiaries of that corruption. And that's the country's biggest problem. But I know there are those silent out there who are not part of this ring of impunity, corruption, and tribalism. And they look at the whole thing, and many of them choose to migrate out. Many of them choose to keep quiet and do their thing quietly. But I think now the time has arrived for them to get out of their cocoons and come together and create a different conversation, take this country to a different direction, and take up leadership positions, even if it's through the ballot and things like that. So we start changing the kind of, I'll tell you this, and I know when I get back to Parliament I'll be vilified by my colleagues. But having sat in the 10th, 11th, and 12th Parliament, I will say clearly that the quality has deteriorated so badly.
All right, well, unfortunately, time is not on our side, gentlemen. I would have loved to hear what you say about the exit of CJ MARAGA, but we'll have time to discuss that because I know it is going to a heated moment as we get to find who is going to take up that mantle. But then some bit of reaction from people. Shiro Moko says, does our vote even count? So even when we speak about going out there to vote, rigging is going to take place and all this, and maybe our vote will not count. Arab Oko says it's also wrong to give wheelbarrows to only one tribe. Let all be given, unless you want to tell hustlers are only found among the Mount Kenya community. That's an interesting one, yeah. And Kaka Josh, good morning. Watching live from South B. Kenyans need to shed off this tribal talk and focus on ideologies. Bokoro Yahe is watching from Columbus, Ohio. I would want to believe Yahe is from Ghana. Also maybe interested with the conversation on Martin. No, Yaya Jami was from Gambia. Yeah, Gambia. So I'm a bit getting confused on the names and all that. And yes, there are a couple of messages coming in. Arapo says that it is important to focus on the politics as a youth, and Hustler Nation is the only one that we have today. Well, so much so, but we won't be